Hello everyone who came today. My name is Kalila Jones. I'm 23 years old and a native Philadelphian. I recently graduated actually from Tyler School of Art and Architecture at Temple University. So I'm the one apprentice that was already here.
A good ambassador for the city too. Thank you.
In my artwork, much like my personal style, I use a lot of vibrant colors, hair accessories, different textiles, and things that you can find at the dollar store. There's a lot of great stuff there, namely googly eyes. Today, in particular, I wanted to talk about a central theme in my practice. I've done a lot of different things while at Tyler, but I feel like something that I come back to a lot is the world of burb. So I will explain, don't worry, what that means. Maybe, we'll see. So what is burb? B-I-R-B. They are lovable creatures. They're my friends, and I've been making them since the day I turned 16 years old. At first, it was really simple to describe a bird. It was egg-shaped, using 3 or more strands of yarn to create a 3-dimensional shape. But as time has gone on, particularly since we all went into lockdown in 2020, burbs have become something more, and I'm really overjoyed by that expansion, but it also makes it harder to explain. As you can see in this picture from September of 2020, there's burbs that are not egg-shaped. They are not owls or birds at all. And I found that kind of liberating when I was stuck in the house to reevaluate what my stuffies could be. And in the time since then, they've been illustrative, they've been fashionable. So I've started thinking about fun, function, and fashion. And so I want you all to keep that in mind as we go along and look at different things. I had a friend that described it as an ethos, which has gotten me thinking about burbs as my way of building community, in terms of connecting with other physical people, but also in creating a world of my own in my mind. It's kind of something that feels like if you know, you know, and if you don't, too bad, because it's like, I feel like the people who take the time to get to know me have really welcomed burbs with open arms, and that means a lot. So, all that said, I'm going to show you some things I've made and let you form your own conclusions about what is burb to you. Also, that little yellow cow there in my lap comes up in a lot of the work. I've used it as a motif to help me think through different mediums. So take a little look and glue that image in your minds. All right. So in my junior spring, I started a personal project which I called the Burbigin. It is burb plus cardigan. And it involved where I started on my iPad sketching out these 3-dimensional characters into flat squares and then translating those drawings into crocheted squares and thinking about these characters or soft sculptures or things I made in other classes in a new way. And again, thinking about the fun, using bright colors, fashion, trying to make a cardigan, but then realizing in the end that the functionality wasn't really there as an object that I would actually wear every day on the streets of Philadelphia. But it certainly was good fun. And there's that little yellow cow again, my clicker. In my senior spring, I did a couple of garment making classes, and in the fall I did a soft sculpture class where I learned how to use knitting machines. So I brought that together for this look. We had a yearly wearable art show put on by the Fibers Department where anyone in all of Temple University could apply. And so I have this doll that I named Little Kalila, and I made us matching outfits even down to the shoes. My shoes I MX dyed because Converse, I was waiting on them and they weren't coming up with my colorway. So I did it myself. And so I also made a hat that is a cow, and was again thinking about how these creatures can look different ways or become wearables. And yeah. That semester, I also did this 3-part collection that I called Interlude No Limits after the song off of Solange's album Seat at the Table. And it wasn't directly, I would say, integrated in the world of Burb in terms of like creating those creatures, but it was kind of looking back at myself and my experiences as a woman of color and how I've related to the world and how the world has related to my hair. And so in each look, I thought about a different part of my life, from childhood and when we're allowed to wear barrettes, but it's like your hair can't be too grown up. So now as a grown up, it's like I get to decide what do I get to do with my hair. It can be purple, you know, and again, thinking about protection and unsolicited touching, but also still showcasing different parts of myself. And ultimately putting in Easter eggs. Nonetheless, there is a barrette on the one piece. I screen printed a repeat pattern onto that side, and there's a little cow in there as one of the barrettes. Again, just like thinking about my world and imagining what things would be in my world. But back to Burb. In the summer, I got to do a rocking chair for the Philadelphia International Airport. I don't know if you've seen it, maybe if you've been in between terminals A and B, you could see it. It is still there. I was recently at the airport. It is looking a bit more well-loved than this installation shot last summer. I will give you all that warning. But when I was doing those projects with the garments in the spring, I showcased them together, as well as the Burb again, and so that led to it getting seen, and the airport asked if they could have their version of the Burb again. And so here I used recycled yarn from old projects that I felt I didn't have an attachment to anymore, because I've been thinking a lot about consumerism and hoarding and waste, and when we just sit on these objects that don't really expire. So I wanted to give them a new life and see the characters in different colorways that I might not have before, to think about their characters and personalities and are they still the same even if they're different colors, and maybe there's something new and letting them have that space. So anyone else is at the airport, please do look out for this chair. In the fall of 2023, I had one final studio. I was in a 5-year program doing fiber and material studies with a concentration in K-12 art. So this was really an exciting time for me to not worry so much about the finished product or the conceptual thought, and to think a lot about the process and what I was doing, the recipes. It's actually very special for me that Christina Roberts is here today, because she was my mentor for my independent study, and we worked a lot to develop experimental systems of like dye paste and machine knit. So here is my first specimen board. On this specimen board, I had 2 larger samples. The clickers there, this one and this one. And one of the goals that I described to Christina is that I just wanted to knit things and look at different color patterns and then completely rip it apart and re-knit it to see how did it become something new. The only one that was saved was this portrait of my Burb Cutie the cow, because I thought it was really sweet. But on our next slide, we can see more samples, and then here again is that one from the previous slide and the other one re-knit so that I could see the color transformation. On the bottom, I have screen printing samples where I combine screen print with hand application of dye to see how it would look on knit. And at the top, this was just me testing my colors, and on the side is a small sample of the repeat pattern that I wanted to do on knit. This was a really exciting process to kind of really go slow, take half of a semester to do color tests, different material tests to figure out how could I get it on this material that I made myself. I knitted all of the yardage on cotton yarn and then screen printed a 2-layer repeat pattern. And it was my first time doing an ombre effect, so it was just a really rewarding process. In the spring semester, I was student teaching, but I really wanted to do this costume. It's something I've had this idea for since I was in high school, but wasn't sure how it would look. I tried it in a sculpture class, and it wasn't really savable. I had to ultimately throw it away. I thought about how a lot of art school is ultimately waste. We throw a lot of that stuff away. A lot of it is samples or hastily made, and so I was like, if I have my own time and I have this studio and this knowledge that I've acquired over the past 5 years, what could I do? So I made this costume, which was in this year's Wearable Art Show. I MX dyed the fabric, I knit and crocheted the udders, and just used other scraps of fabric that I was finding around that people were otherwise just gonna toss to create this wearable piece. And it felt like a closure moment in a way to bring together all of those different skills like sewing and dyeing and knitting that I had learned. So what am I up to now and next? I have the incredible pleasure of working with the Philadelphia Museum of Art, and they want me to make this giant sculpture and teach a workshop. So I've been working at that whenever I'm not here. I don't want to, give away the reveal, but here's my sketch proposal and my miniature model. So if any of you are in the area next Sunday, July 7th, from 10 to 3, you can come check it out. But you can also check it out anytime between July 7th and August 25th. Thanks.
Here's a little treat for those of you who made it to the end of the video. This is install at the Art Museum for the exhibit that I did in the summer of 2024 with the children's programming. It was a really rewarding process. Here's the finished piece, and I'll be showing a video about the whole thing from start to finish soon. Stay tuned.